If you're like me and your iPhone knows more about you than your partner, your psychologist, or your doctor, you probably want to take a few steps to prevent all that incredibly personal data that you've shared with your iPhone from being compromised. Here are 15 iPhone security best practices, and note that I'm using an iPhone 8 for all of these. Apple came under fire recently after admitting that it was using iOS updates to deliberately compromise older iPhones. That has led to lots of people abandoning iOS updates entirely. However, it's worth remembering that firmware updates deliver security features that address vulnerabilities that could compromise your device. Public Wi-Fi networks can be very convenient, but they introduce significant risks as they often have limited security. This means it's relatively easy for criminals to access whatever you're doing online over the network. It's best to avoid these entirely and make sure that Ask to Join networks is switched off on your phone so that you don't inadvertently reconnect to old networks. If you have to use public Wi-Fi and can't use a VPN, make sure you don't use it to access sites that hold your personal information. Avoid logging into sites via apps. Rather visit the website and make sure it uses HTTPS. If you don't need Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, turn them off so that you're less vulnerable. Location services are really convenient, but it's important to understand how they work. The hardware in your phone is capable of communicating with satellites orbiting the globe. Through triangulation, which involves communicating with 3 satellites at the same time, the GPS is able to pinpoint your exact location, which is highly convenient when you need directions. However, does every app on your phone need to broadcast your whereabouts? The more apps you're sharing your location with, the more vulnerable you are to that information getting into the wrong hands, such as criminals who want to know when you're away from home. You can find out which apps are using location services in your settings and privacy settings. If you lose your phone or it gets stolen, you want to make sure that whoever gets their hands on it can't access all your sensitive information. So it's advisable to set up a passcode to unlock the phone. You can do this in Settings, Touch ID, and Passcode. And don't forget to set Erase Data to erase all data on the phone after 10 failed passcode attempts. If your phone is already unlocked when you lose it, you want it to lock automatically to protect your private data. Mine is set to 2 minutes. To do this, go into Settings, Display and Brightness. If you want to be really safe, don't use Touch ID, even though it's incredibly convenient. That's because it's pretty easy for someone who wants to fake your fingerprint to do so. To disable Touch ID, go to Settings, Touch ID and Passcode. Even though this feature uses location services, it's worth enabling it so that you can remotely wipe your iPhone through iCloud if you lose it. You can enable Find My iPhone in Settings, Apple ID, iCloud. In the Safari settings, make sure Fraudulent Website Warning is turned on and turn off all autofill settings. Browser autofill is a real privacy risk as it can be easily compromised. Before you sell or give away your iPhone, wipe it. It's very easy to do. It's in Settings, General Reset, Erase all content and settings. Go to Settings, Privacy, Location Services, System Services, and turn off tracking wherever you don't need it. If you don't need to share your data with an organization, don't do it. You can determine which notifications show in the lock screen in Notification Previews in Settings, Notifications. If your iPhone ends up in the wrong hands, do you want your WhatsApp messages and emails to show up as they come through? Two-factor authentication means that someone who has your password still won't be able to access your account. It's an extra layer of security for your Apple ID. Set it up in Settings, Your Name, Password and Security. While iCloud Backup is incredibly convenient, do you need all your data from all your apps stored on Apple servers? Go to Settings, Your Name, iCloud, manage storage, backups, and you can choose which apps back up to iCloud and which don't. Disable any apps that hold sensitive data. Jailbreaking basically means overriding the restrictions that Apple puts on the operating system so that you can take full control of the device. People do it so that they can install apps and tweaks that aren't authorized by Apple. However, it also overrides the built-in security protections in the iOS, so it leaves your phone vulnerable. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like it and share it, and most importantly, subscribe to 4 Minute Tech.